Cool. All right. So this week we are looking at red flags and pitfalls of being new to HEMA. Let's get to it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the HEMA Show, the show where we look at help and advice to news and reviews. Like always, I'm Stuart. This is edited by Andy. Say hello, Andy. And let's get cracking. So today's episode, what we're looking at essentially are red flags and pitfalls of being new to the hobby and how to deal with opinionated people. I can hear the comment section already going nuts. Hopefully, it means we've got people watching. But this could be a bit of a contentious one, so apologies. HEMA is a great sport. I love HEMA wholeheartedly. But the thing with HEMA is that everybody loves it. And everybody really cares about HEMA. And we all want the best thing for HEMA. And sometimes that can come across negatively if you misunderstand someone. It's easy because you care so much about the sport. A lot of us do. Because we care so much about the sport, sometimes our reactions can be a little bigger or a little less tempered than other things in our lives, because some things don't matter as much as HEMA does to us. Or certainly for some of us anyway. And sometimes just the filter of niceness sometimes gets removed, basically. I've had it multiple times where someone has come to one of my clubs, someone new, and they've been like, oh, this is totally different from what I've experienced in HEMA before. You know, why are you guys so chill? It's like, well, you got to remember that people kind of, not defensive, but people care about their sport. So people tend to look after it. And sometimes that can come across in the wrong way. Especially, I suspect we're all cut from the slightly same cloth. We're all of an introverted type. We're all slightly odd to a certain degree. I heard it described by one of my members best is we're usually the hardest people in Games Workshop. And I think that's very, very true. That's the kind of people you're dealing with in HEMA. And they're all great people. They are all great people. But sometimes just remember that tempers can be put under the microscope a little bit sometimes. And this is not by any stretch of imagination saying that it is a prominent problem in HEMA. Quite the opposite, actually. I found of all the sports I've done in my life, HEMA has been the most open and the most welcoming sport. It's absolutely fantastic. But like anything, there are certain things to watch out for if you are new to HEMA. And to a certain degree, if you're more experienced, or doubly so, if you're in my situation where you run a club, you need to watch out for these things as well. So we could all benefit from this, really. But red flags, things to watch out for. Generally at my club, we're, say an oddity, that would be phrasing it wrong. We are a little bit more relaxed. We don't focus on any one specific weapon system. We don't focus on any one specific master, one tradition, even one country. We very much take the buffet angle from HEMA. We pick and choose a little bit of everything, and anything that really interests anyone, they kind of go down that avenue, and we do what we can to support them. What it means is I ask an incredible amount of my coaches, the poor buggers. So I do demand a lot from my coaches, but that's the best, you know, in my opinion. There's not me saying our way is right, other clubs' ways are wrong, not even slightly. I got a lot of respect for people that focus solely on one system. But for us, we take the pick and mix approach. There are people that like German longsword in our clubs. Some people like Italian rapier. All sorts. You've got guys doing English side sword and saber. We've got Dusak stone, all sorts, loads of stuff. But things to watch out for if you're new to HEMA, I would say fundamentally people saying no, people saying that you're wrong, or people saying that you're incorrect. Now, factually, if you pick up a longsword and be like, sweet, got an iron sword, yeah, obviously, they'd be like, no, that's a longsword, mate. That's fine, obviously. Context is key. Like I keep saying, context is key. Keep an eye on the context. Whereas if you're going, oh, this is a longsword, I would love to give a little bit of Italian longsword a go, and someone's going, no, that's wrong. You're doing German. That's the kind of thing I mean by a red flag. We should all, as practitioners, as coaches, of just doers of the sport, we should be encouraging everything for all of us. The more people try, the more people sample, the more they do, the more enjoyment they find, and the more diverse that they'll find that they like. I know there's a huge amount of guys at my club that if they hadn't played around, they would have never known that they liked side sword and buckler, for example. So people telling you that something is wrong, or people saying, oh no, this weapon is stupid, it's for idiots, or this weapon's rubbish, this weapon's the best, do this weapon. That's the thing you need to watch out for. It does happen, and like I say, because people care. People give it. So that's where this comes from. It doesn't come from a place of malice, usually. I'll come back to that point in a moment. It doesn't usually come back from a point of malice. Never attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity in this case. People just care. Maybe they don't have the social skills to broadcast that in the correct way, especially if you're new. We've all been new at a club. We've all had that really awkward week, first week, really nervous, kind of everyone's doing their thing, everyone's suited up, smacking each other about, steels ringing across the hall. And we've all been there and been new and been intimidated. And sometimes when you're in those new situations, and I'm talking to the experienced guys now, when you're in those new situations, you forget how under the microscope every single emotion can be. You're new to something, you're slightly scared, if you're honest. What people say weighs a lot. You don't want to say the wrong thing, you don't want to do the wrong thing. As independent as we all think we are, everyone kind of just wants to fit in. And sometimes the wrong thing being said, or a joke out of context, or a poorly tempered response can do a huge amount of damage. So maybe we need to just think about how we talk to new people. You know, someone says, I've been looking up online, I've been watching some stuff on YouTube, I'd really like to give some German longsword a go, and kind of shouting them down, saying, no, we don't want to do that, do Italian, it's better, much more footwork, it's lovely. You know, never doubt how much that can crumple someone's confidence on day one. We owe it to the sport, because we were all new at one point as well. We owe it to the sport to get as many people in, build up before we try and do anything different. It's all about building up, in my opinion. We need to make people feel confident and supported in our clubs. Now, circling back to what I said earlier, which is most people don't mean to be offensive. Is that the right word? No, that's not the right word. Come on, Stu, use your brain. What word am I thinking of? Just to be contentious. Contentious. Most people don't mean to be contentious. Most people don't mean to be opinionated. But you know what? And this is a sad fact of life. Some people are just dicks. Some people are. And you've got to factor in the dick equation, which is my other channel. Firstly, in the first instance, red flags, I would say, you know, just watch out for people saying no, okay, and telling you what to do out of context, okay, but that can be done. But when you come across these people who are very overtly opinionated or overtly, I'd say even to a certain degree, gatekeepery, I guess, that's when you really have an issue. And at that point, there are two things to establish. Whether there is a reason why they're acting like that. Never forget, there's neurodivergency. People may be just different, and that's okay. That's cool. You know, and whilst we all take responsibility for our differences, maybe if someone says something or is opinionated or whatever, maybe sometimes you should take a step back and be like, that was weird. I wonder if I'll ask the coach. You know, let's help each other out. You know, that's Dutch door action. That one goes both ways. But secondly, find out if that behaviour is systemic in the club. I've only had the displeasure, again, I won't name names. I never do. That's not what I'm about. I can't be asked of all that. I can't be asked with slinging muck and building my club up whilst making other clubs look bad. I don't do that. It's kind of a dick move. I'm not okay with that. But I've only had the displeasure of being at a club that was systemically toxic once before. it's going to be quite tricky to talk about it without, without naming the club. So I went along just for a trial session. This was immediately before I set up Newbury HEMA Club, before it became Smart HEMA Club. And I kind of went to a couple of HEMA clubs just to see what they did, get a feel for it. Not necessarily sniping ideas, just to get a feel for what was standard, to see. I've been running fencing clubs for years at that point in time, so to see what things I'd done could track over. So various boring coachy things, essentially, but not being a dick and stealing ideas. Very keen to get that in there. And this club was just, it seemed cool. It seemed really cool. Seemed really interesting, pretty chill in the warm-up. And then everyone did the warm-up. Then there was this weird group session of a class, which is just, it wasn't bad, it was just odd. Again, I don't want to go into specifics, I don't want to disparage people. So it wasn't a lesson that was to my liking. And then afterwards, this guy, Christ, I almost said his name then, this guy come up to me. And he's like, oh, so you new here to HEMA? And I was like, yeah, I've not done HEMA before. I've done fencing and X, Y, Z. And I won't say his response because I'm pretty sure it would violate YouTube's terms and conditions. But it wasn't savoury. He had thoughts and opinions on fencing and the sort of people that did it, and made assumptions of the people that do fencing. And I was like, ooh, okay, well that's, firstly, those words aren't okay to say anymore. Secondly, it's kind of a dick attitude, isn't it? So one of those situations where you're new, so you just kind of go, all right, fine, I'm going to go over there because reasons. Those reasons being you're a dick, but reasons. And then I went and spoke to the coach, not about that situation. I just wanted to feel, I felt very uncomfortable, felt very, very on my back foot. And I went and spoke to the coach, and I brought fencing up just as part of a natural conversational tangent. And the same, not quite as overt, but the same opinions, the same feelings came up, and I was like, okay, this is a systemic problem in this club. This is obviously a club that has these opinions, and that's the way they jam. And I was like, okay, this isn't for me, this isn't cool. So when you come up against opinionated people, try and figure out if there's a reason. Just even a cursory, just stop and check. It's very easy to get offended. And you know what, sometimes offense is correct. You know, if something's offensive, people get offended, that's fine. But sometimes just take a step back and be like, I wonder why. And then you may just take a moment and figure out what the hell's going on. But if something's just crazy, figure out if it's club-wide, because if it's club-wide, you don't need to be there. You really don't need to be wasting time on a club like that. There are loads of great clubs in this country. Go to a cool club. You know, it's not hard to find a decent club. But generally, my advice when you come across someone, that's a very extreme case, by the way. I don't want to freak people out or put people off. Make anyone feel that this is a sport full of just absolutely inappropriate people. It's not. That was a massively outlier of a case. So my advice to people, when you come across someone who's opinionated, and you will, it's a sad fact that sooner or later you'll come across someone who is opinionated about something. Generally, just smile and wave.
Just smile and wave, boys. Smile and wave.
Providing they're not saying something that's absolutely abhorrent, providing they're not saying something that is just flat out wrong or could just be conceived as bullying or something like that, then 9 times out of 10 you can fix it just so that, okay, gotta go. You know, and then if there's anything that crosses a line or you feel crosses a personal line, let the coach know. That's the other half of the coach's job, is the smooth running of a club. But you will, unfortunately, you will come up against opinions. And people, what's the phrase? Like, here's my opinion and why you're entitled to it. And just remember, no one is morally absolute. No one is factually absolute. Okay, all these things are open to interpretation and speculation. And generally, my approach is don't be a dick. That's pretty much my attitude. There's no need to be a dick to people. And if people are being a dick, that's not cool. There's no need. Don't do it. So honestly, you don't need to be in a situation where you're like, oh, this kind of sucks, this blows, these people are jerks. You know, if you find somebody who's really opinionated, remove yourself from that person. It's nice and easy. If you're in a club that's like that, then remove yourself from the club. Find better people. But just be aware that there are people who are opinionated, and there are opinions out there. They are in the minority, but unfortunately, they are vocal. They are a squeaky wheel. So sometimes you can just take a step back from it. That's all I would say. But don't let that tar everyone. Okay. We're not all like that. Most of us are relatively decent people. Hope that helps. Anyway, on to the Q&A. Okay, so we've got 2 questions this week, funnily enough. Most of these questions I don't read ahead of schedule. I kind of just see there's a question and then immediately before we come on I copy and paste it. Boop, there we go. But this first one made me laugh, so I had to put it on. So from Mikey P. Who the hell is that Slender Man thing to your left? Cheers, Mikey P, you dick. This is Fred. Fred is a scoring dummy that I got off my mate Alan. I decided to stick him up. I hold fencing lessons in here as well. So this is a recording studio, but also fencing lessons. This is Fred. You've got a sprung wrist. Maybe for the next episode I'll screw a sword in. I can't be bothered to do it now because I'm not that professional. But epee foil can screw into this here. The wrist is spring loaded, so you can actually do quite nice binds and beats and all sorts of stuff on him. The arm anchors in various positions, up and down. And those are lunging pads on the body. And fencing mask, because I ran out of coat pegs to put my fencing masks on. So that one's there. So that's Fred. Saw that question come up and I quite like that one. Yeah, so Fred's going to be a mainstay of this. Cool. So question number 2. I can't read my handwriting. Well done. How can I stop getting hit as much? By Isaac C. How can I stop getting hit as much? So this, again, a little bit like the question last week. This is a fairly broad question. I would imagine this has come from a beginner to an intermediate. For mostly, I would say there is a set of questions to ask yourself when you're being hit. Where? How? Why? Okay? Just those. And just taking that moment to ask yourself to stop, and rather than going, oh, I've been hit again, sake. Just take a step back. Where? Where have I been hit? Where does it hurt? Hopefully it doesn't. Where have I been hit? Give you an idea. How have I gotten hit? Thrust, cut. Why did I get hit? Was it left open? Did I block? Did they go round? Anything. Context. So where, mechanics, context. It sounds really stupid, but that much will give you a huge amount of feedback. Hope that helps. See you next week. Doodle-doo, doodle-doo, doodle-doo.